Imagine being crushed so tightly between your own comrades that you die standing upright, unable to fall, your ribcage compressed until bones punch through lungs. 722a. D. 300 starving Christian outcasts hiding in a Spanish mountain cave faced a Muslim army of 20,000 elite warriors who'd conquered from India to France. By sunset, the cave dwellers would be victorious through the most brutal geographic execution in medieval warfare. The massive army would be utterly destroyed, not by swords or courage, but by physics, limestone, and a valley that became a meat grinder. Think about this ratio that defies military logic. 1 defender for every 67 attackers. The fate of Christianity in Western Europe hung by a thread in a remote cave where water dripped on limestone and the smell of fear mixed with desperate determination. But here's what makes this battle truly insane. The Christians didn't win through martial skill. They won because the Muslim commander marched his entire army into a geographic killing machine where numbers became weakness, where elite cavalry had to dismount and shuffle forward in single file toward death, where 100,000 tons of mountain collapsed at exactly the moment it would cause maximum casualties. How did 300 men with hunting bows kill 18,000 professional soldiers? What made a commander who'd never lost a battle ignore every tactical warning? Why did the mountain itself seem to fight for the Christians? The answers lie in the most lopsided victory in medieval warfare, where desperate men turned geography into genocide, and where stones dropped from cliffs did what armies couldn't. The year 711 changed everything for Christian Spain in a catastrophe that unfolded with terrifying speed. In just 2 years, the mighty Visigothic kingdom that had stood for 3 centuries crumbled like sandcastles before the Islamic tide. City after city fell to Muslim armies sweeping across the Iberian Peninsula with unprecedented velocity. Toledo, the great capital, surrendered without siege. Its walls intact, but its will broken. The last Visigothic king, Roderick, died in battle at Guadalete River, his kingdom dying with him in blood-soaked water. But among the palace guards who survived the slaughter was a man named Pelayo the Exile, once bodyguard to kings. Now, nothing but an outlaw hiding in mountains with a price on his head that could buy a small town. The Muslims had marked him for death, not for what he'd done, but for what he represented, the old order that refused to die quietly. The Christian nobility that wouldn't kneel. Leading the Islamic forces in northern Spain was Al-Qama, nicknamed the Avalanche, a commander who'd never lost a battle in campaigns spanning 3 continents. He'd crushed armies 10 times his size through tactical brilliance that made generals weep. Veterans whispered his name with respect mixed with fear. When Al-Qama marched, kingdoms fell and cities burned. Yet the real power in the north was Munuza, the pragmatic Muslim governor who wanted peace and understood something Al-Qama didn't. The mountains of Asturias were different from any terrain they'd conquered. These weren't the plains of Syria where cavalry dominated, or the deserts of Arabia where mobility meant victory. These were vertical mazes of stone where conventional warfare meant nothing and where armies went to die. The Muslim conquest brought a tribute system designed to avoid endless warfare. Convert to Islam or pay the jizya tax. Most Spaniards paid. The tax was affordable even for shepherds, designed more for symbolic submission than revenue. But in the mountains of Asturias, Pelayo said no with finality that would echo for centuries. This wasn't about money that any peasant could afford. This was about the soul of a continent, about whether Christian civilization would survive in Western Europe. You have to understand the geography that made Pelayo's defiance possible. Asturias is where Spain runs out of room. Pressed between towering mountains and the Cantabrian Sea, valleys so narrow that 20 men could hold off thousands trying to advance through them, peaks so high that clouds lived permanently below their summits, rivers that could transform from trickling streams into torrents within minutes of rain. This landscape had never been fully conquered, not by Romans with their engineering genius, not by Visigoths with their military prowess. Pelayo bet his life and the lives of 300 men that these mountains wouldn't fall to Muslims either. What happened next broke every accepted rule of warfare and defied tactical logic. Pelayo didn't just refuse tribute and hide in caves hoping to be forgotten. He started raiding Muslim tax collectors systematically, ambushing them on mountain paths, taking their gold to feed his growing band. Each success brought more followers drawn by the impossible, shepherds who knew every hidden path, invisible to lowland eyes, dispossessed nobles with nothing left to lose except their lives, former soldiers who remembered how to fight and thirsted for revenge, even some local Muslims who resented Alcama's harsh rule and brutal taxation. The religious divide cut deep into every aspect of the conflict. This wasn't just about land or gold or political power. Christians saw the Muslim conquest as the apocalypse foretold in Revelation, the end times made manifest. Muslims saw Christian resistance as rebellion against God's obvious will, against the divine mandate proven by their unprecedented military success. Neither side could back down without betraying everything they believed, without admitting their God was weaker. When word reached Alcama that a minor noble was causing trouble in worthless mountains nobody wanted, he laughed with genuine amusement. These weren't the first rebels he'd faced in his career of conquest. He'd crushed Berber revolts in North Africa, Persian holdouts in the eastern provinces. What could shepherd rebels possibly do against professional soldiers who'd broken Byzantine shield walls? But Munuza, who'd governed these mountains for years and understood their danger, knew better. He sent urgent warnings to Alcama written in his own hand. The mountains here aren't like other places. The people are different. Send negotiators with gold, not armies with steel. But Alcama had orders directly from Damascus. The Caliphate's beating heart: crush all resistance without exception. Make examples that would terrify future rebels. Show that rebellion meant death in its most horrible forms. The army Alcama assembled would make any commander confident of victory and glory. 10,000 confirmed elite cavalry, though chronicles would later claim 124,000 total in typical medieval exaggeration. But even the conservative number was overwhelming against 300 cave dwellers. These weren't conscripts dragged from farms or militia with minimal training. These were professional soldiers, each man a veteran of multiple campaigns across 3 continents, each with equipment worth a fortune. Their equipment alone told the story of an empire at its peak. Damascus steel swords that could cut through iron without dulling. Composite bows with a 300-yard killing range. Technology stolen from the steppes and perfected in Syrian workshops. Scale armor that turned aside most weapons while allowing movement unlike heavy European mail. The supply train stretched back 5 miles, carrying everything needed to sustain a campaign, ammunition stockpiled for months of fighting, food for thousands, siege equipment, medical supplies. These men had conquered from India to France, breaking every army sent against them. They'd shattered the Sassanid Persian Empire that had stood for centuries, crushed the Byzantines in Syria despite defensive advantages, swept across North Africa like a storm that consumed everything. They'd adapted to every terrain and every enemy, desert warfare under merciless sun.